So let's talk about string concatenation. We will come back to string many times. It's a really important topic. For now, we're just going to focus on concatenation. Concatenation is the additions of two strings together. So when we do this plus and we have a string on one side, and there's a space here inside the quotes, and we have a string on the other side, Reza, it would equal to the final value of hello Reza. Right? Allows me to put two strings beside each other. We call this concatenation. Not addition. They don't change into a different value. They combine together side by side. Now, what's interesting about this is this concatenation, you could actually do it with pretty much any other type until one side, let me go back on my pen here, until one side is a string and one side is any type. So we could have int, float, another string, a character, a boolean, any type that you could think of. It would automatically be converted to string, and we will go further, right? This casting is called an implicit casting, where we talked about this. This implicit casting, we've seen it a few times. Hopefully you had some work you've done where you notice that when let's say as an example, when I divide 10 by 3, I don't get the actual number, which I think it's 3.33. I get an integer number, which is just 3, right? Why? Because I got an integer here and I got an integer here. So the computer realizes that it's an integer that's being operated on with another integer. So the operation doesn't really matter, but the two operators are both integers, so the result must be integer. Remember, we don't assume the computer is smart at all. It's whatever we've done to it. If it can't see it, it cannot see it. So to fix this problem and not get a final integer here, we needed to ensure that one side was a different type. So if one side was float as an example, so let's say as an example, this was 10.0f, right? F for float. And then we divide it by an integer, 3. This time it will give the correct value, and that's because it's doing an implicit casting. It cannot do an operation with one different type from one side and a different type on another. So you can't have a float and an integer. It needs to be both sides the same type. And the only way it could do an implicit casting, as you saw before, is to go up. So smaller stuff could be inside bigger stuff. Int is smaller than float. So we could put the int inside our float. So the computer will automatically change the 3 into a float, do this division 10 divided by 3, and give us the correct answer, 3.3 blah, blah, blah. Right? So knowing that and knowing about implicit casting and so forth, so on, we need to also understand that string is the biggest type we'll ever have. So what that means is whenever you do an operation with string involved, it will always cast the other side to string. So to make this a bit more interesting, let's say as an example, if I have 10 as a string and I have a 9 here, we notice because of the quotes here, this side is string and this is a concatenation, not an addition. It doesn't change the value that's coming out. It combines the two things side by side to show us the final result. And this side is an integer. The first thing that happens, it's an implicit casting, which basically means this integer is smaller and it's going to be converted to 9, right? And the final result of this concatenation is not going to be 19, it's going to be 109, right? It's a bit confusing. But remember, the implicit casting is really important. Now, you're like, okay, that makes sense. Well, let's try it out with you guys. If I had, before I do some demo of code, okay? Last part. If I wanted, let's say, I don't know, let's say age, okay? And then I said plus, and actually, sorry, let me do this a bit more. Age, colon, and we do plus. So we notice that this is already a string. We could type that at the top. So this is already a string. And then here I want to figure out his age. So let's say the current year, 2021. So we say 2021. And let's say minus his age. Let's make this a bit easy. So I'm going to say the person was born at 2000. Right? And this is my code right now. And let's say I'm putting it in a print. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. Wherever I put it doesn't really matter. But we're getting a concatenation going on. How do we know it's a concatenation? In this little plus. How do we know it's a concatenation and not an addition? Well, one side is a string. But there's also a negative and there's also a positive. Now, what is the final value? What do you think is the final value? Right? Now, if we remember those pyramids and all the what comes first and so forth, so on, well, plus and minus are at the same level. So in this case, I might not be completely sure. I don't do these simple stuff anymore, and there's different ways of coding this, but we're going to do it together and we're going to confirm right after. So in this case, because plus and minus are the same level, the plus is done first. So the value that's going to be done, the value over here is going to be age, space, colon, space, 2021. And all of that is a string. Minus 2000. Right? Now we tried to do the minus, but that's a bit weird because string cannot have anything else than the plus. The plus for it means concatenation. Everything else doesn't make sense. So over here, we actually will get an error. Okay, we'll try this out in code in a second to confirm all this. But let's suppose I wanted to do something else. Let's suppose I did plus and here's plus. What would be my final value? Would it be age 4021? Would it be age 4021 because of these two? Or would it be age 2021 and 2000? And notice there's no space because there was no space here or here, right? Well, inside of a string concatenation. Anyway, let's try this out. Just to confirm all we learned, does it make sense? What's going on here? So the first thing we want to do, we're going to do a simple output to the screen. And we're going to say age, colon, and we said this is a string concatenation. Actually, the first thing I'll do is just let's put some strings. Let's just put age and reza. Doesn't really make any sense. It's just to make sure that what we learned makes sense. The plus works. And if we look over here, let me clear my screen 1 second. If we look over here, you could see that the both strings are put beside each other. Good. Now, if we come back, we're just talking about we're going to put a value here other than integer. Maybe I could even put true. Let's say as a boolean, just to see what is the final value. Notice that the boolean got converted to string and easily got printed out to the screen. This could be really useful for printing integers, booleans, etc. to display it to the user. Now, we could also put an integer, 23. Print it out. Let's see again. 23, perfect. What if I have, let's say if I have 7 over here, 7 plus 23, We know this is an addition, so it's going to equal to 30, right? What if one side was surrounded by string, by quotes? So now we got one side that's string, one side that's integer, so it will print out 723. Okay? Now, what if we had age, colon, we said 2021 minus their age that they were born, 2000. Right away, it's going to give us an error, and this is because this is a string plus an integer minus an integer. But the problem with this, and we talked about it a second ago, the problem with this was the first thing to happen is this plus. So over here, it gets converted to age 21. And then we got a string. This is a string minus an integer. There is no minus that goes with string. So this is not possible. How can we make this possible? Well, we could start making this possible if we do the minus before. So we could take a parentheses. And now it should work because we're doing the minus before we do the string. So this is an integer minus an integer. It will give us a final result of integer. But the moment we do a string plus a number or any other type, it will always turn into a string. And this is really important. Cool? Now, having this power, knowing, understanding string concatenation, we could write out really nice prints and do other funky stuff that would really benefit us in the future. We're going to come back and learn more about string. Again, it's a really important part of your foundation, let's say. But for now, this is pretty good. So as an example, let's say I have an age, and we're going to put something in there, 23. We got a name. We're going to put that my name. We got some, I don't know, let's say happy. And we could say true. Now, having those values, I could concatenate them together. I'm going to leave this one up here. I could concatenate them together by doing something like this. Let's say hello, and then we do name, and then we do, I don't know, comma. You are concatenated again. 23 concatenated again. Notice the extra spaces I put inside of the quotes, right? If you put it outside the quotes, it doesn't matter. We talked about this before, but inside the quotes, it will matter. You are 23 years old, and your happiness, no, and over here, happiness, if we put it in, let's try it out. And let's just put that. You are, let's say, happy, but there is no happy. If I put the variable there, let's see what happens. It's not going to be perfect, but now we could do, we're starting to make our stuff more clear. Hello, Reza. Good. This is this part. You are 23 years old. You are 23 years old. Notice the spaces are perfect between two variables. Having this space before the quotes, before I put my value, oh, I put 23. What am I doing there? Age. Having my variable here in this quote enables me to have a clear output to the user. Make sure the user always understands what you're doing. But this happy doesn't work out fine. So this happy, well, in this case, there's ways we could deal with this, but for now, we could say you are and end it there and make this into a print. And we could just do, yeah, I didn't talk about if statements, so we're going to keep it there for now. We'll come back to this a little bit later. I want to make sure the videos are short. Okay? This is a problem. True is not the best word we want here. Maybe we could change the word to happiness, and we put true or false, and we could end it there. Yeah. Happiness equals true. Cool? Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video.